Hope TV family, what's good? Holla at your boy. It's the boy, Dr. J.C. Howard, and this is Christ and Culture. I appreciate you locking in with me on this day, on this wonderful Friday. Shout out to the overseer, Dr. E. Dewey Smith Jr., and all of House of Hope Atlanta, and all of our constituents, all of Hope Nation. We love each and every one of y'all, man. Listen, very quickly, I've been doing this series on Voice of the Culture TV, which is featured on all of House of Hope Macon's platforms. I've been doing interviews with various different people, and it's just been incredible. It's been insane. And I want to share an interview that I did with a young sister by the name of Michaela Winbush. She's just graduated with a master's in family therapy, and she started her professional life in therapy. She's been counseling married couples and families, and I just was so impressed by this young sister's, by her perseverance, because even during a global pandemic, she was able to persevere, still get her degree, and she's moved into her professional life. So we talk about that transition, and we also talk about how the pandemic, it really gave her inspiration to step her game up, to step her hustle up. And so y'all don't want to miss that in conversation. It's going to bless anybody that is really trying to get out here and really trying to follow their dreams. So check this out, Hope TV, my interview with Sister Michaela. I promise it's going to be inspiring, and I'll catch you next time. It's your boy, Voice of the Culture, Dr. J.C. Howard, and this is Christ and Culture.
So I started out doing my undergrad at the University of West Georgia in Carrollton, Georgia. I started there in 2015, and I actually went into undergrad thinking I wanted to be an optometrist. I was like head over heels for optometry and all that stuff. So I started off as a biology major, and my grades were just not looking. It wasn't looking like I was going to be an optometrist. So I was like, okay, let me try to think about something else that I am passionate about, something I can see myself doing for the rest of my life. And so that's how I ended up transitioning over to psychology, and I fell in love with it. I've always been very observant and very intuitive. I'm really good at picking up on people's body language, and I've always just been really interested in how people think and why people think the way they think and why they behave the way they behave. And even in my family, my mom will call me the peacemaker of the house, because I'm always the one trying to find the resolution. I'm always the one trying to see everybody's side and fix things. So that's pretty much how I found myself in psychology. And so then I ended up finding the Master of Family Therapy program at Mercer, which I really didn't even know I wanted to be a therapist. I knew that I wanted to work with families in some way. I just didn't know how. But then I came across that program, and it really spoke to me. So I applied, and here I am today. So that's a little bit about how I got here.
Listen, let me tell you something. I had my battles with biology as well, and the Lord let me know it's time to go another way. And so, listen, I don't blame you at all for that at all. And that's super dope, because really, and that's really what college is for, right? I mean, it really kind of helps you to navigate, and you don't have to make concrete decisions. You come in maybe thinking one thing, and you leave doing something totally different. And so I think that's just really super dope, and it really speaks to kind of the matriculation and the evolution of self, even when you go through college, which is a really important thing for young adults to do. And so you transition from kind of thinking about medical field to psychology and therapy. My first main question is that, how was the transition from undergrad to graduate to postgraduate work? What was that what did that transition entail? And you kind of spoke to finding that program, and it just kind of was tailor-made to fit for you and what you desired to do. And shout out to your family, by the way, Tanya, Linwood, I love y'all. Those are my peoples, man. But with you being a peacemaker and you really feeling called to the work, innately, how was that transition from undergrad and responsibilities from undergrad to postgraduate work? And what should other young adults who are thinking about going to grad school, no matter what the major and the focus is, what should they kind of look for or be prepared for when they make that transition?
Right. So that transition was very different. I thought, because, I've always been good at school. School is you go to class, you do your homework, and that's what school is. So that's what I was expecting going into grad school. So I actually finished undergrad in July 2019, and I started grad school in August 2019. So I had about 2.5 weeks of just like really no break, just kind of preparing for grad school, thinking I was just gonna ease in there. And then I get there, and it was like the first day of class, we're like in tears talking about our life and our personal stuff we had going on. So I was like, okay, what did I just get myself into? But, you know, I definitely had to realize that grad school, because it's a lot more focused on what you're actually going to do with your career, it does take a lot of time management skills.
Right.
Definitely a lot of prioritization. Like, you know, you have to really see, okay, do I really want to go hang out with my friends right now? Or do I need to go sit down and write this paper? So definitely that was a huge eye opener for me, just because I wasn't expecting a huge shift like that.
Right.
The coursework obviously is more interesting because it's something that you really, really want to do, whereas undergrad is kind of like you're taking classes because you need them for the degree.
Yes.
So it's a little the dedication to the work itself is a little different. So it's a balance between just enjoying what you're doing, but still having to like make sure that you're on top of your time management so that you're not overwhelmed. So that is what I would say for people who are trying to figure out if they want to go to grad school. Definitely look for a program that speaks to you. Like, don't just pick a program because, you know, it sounds good or you think it's going to be like undergrad, because this is something that you're dedicating your life to, and you really want to make sure that you're getting everything out of the program you need as far as like professors, how many people they accept into the program. So I know with Mercer, my cohort started off with 12, now it's 9 of us. So it's really close knit. My teachers are like, I have their phone numbers. I can text them right now if I needed to. And they're very hands-on, which is something I needed because I'm not very extroverted. I'm really like in my own shell. So it's always been really hard for me, especially in undergrad, to like reach out to professors if I needed help or like go see my advisor. So my thing when looking for a program was finding a program that I could get that one-on-one attention when I needed it without having to really go out of my way for it. So something that really made me feel comfortable and at home. And so I definitely found that at Mercer. So definitely something that just speaks to you personally as a person.
Super dope. I love that. And you're absolutely correct. I couldn't agree more. You know, when I transitioned from same kind of transition, I went straight from undergrad to graduate school, and I moved states. And so I moved from Georgia, Morehouse College, to New Jersey. And, but one thing I was really excited about was the fact that I was going to be studying what I wanted to study. And so, you know, although even in grad school, you're going to be forced to read and assign stuff that you're not interested in, but the bulk of the work you are actually interested in because it's something that you want to do. In most cases, it's something that you want to do for the rest of your life. And so, or for at least for a significant amount of time. And so I totally agree with that. But you hit some really hot points, particularly for individuals, even for kids that are young people that are going to school, but particularly those who are transitioning to grad school. Priority, making sure that you're prioritizing, time management and connection. That's one thing I love too. When I went to grad school, I was so connected with my professors. We met and had coffee and talked about my work, and it was really dope. And so I totally agree with you on that. But let me tell you, when I heard from you, it just really rang in the back of my mind, because undergrad, you know, you're kind of finding your way, you know what I mean? And there's a heavy emphasis on the social life in undergraduate school, right? Particularly depending on where you go, there's a heavy emphasis on the social life. Whereas when you get to grad school, you're like, okay, I've been there and done that. I'm still gonna have a good time, but I'm really more focused on my academics. And so, would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. Because, you know, like you said, in undergrad, you really don't have a lot of responsibility. You just have to get up, go to class.
Go to class.
You might not go to class. So it's like, you know, you kind of have that freedom. But grad school was way different because I moved I go to Mercer, but I'm at the Atlanta campus. So I live in Atlanta. So I'm in this apartment where I have real bills. I have to like eat every day. There's not a dining hall I can go to. So I have to do grocery shopping on top of doing homework that takes up my entire week. Like you barely get a break. So it's like I had to live real life while still doing school. And I was just always used to just doing school. Like that was my lane, just school. I had my parents to cook for me and buy this and pay for this. But then now I had to do all of that on top of school. So it was a huge like shock for me at first. Like, okay, I need to figure out like how to do this because I don't know how to live real life. That was definitely a huge out.
I'm glad you mentioned that because the responsibilities do start rolling in for real. The party can't last forever. You know what I'm saying? Real responsibilities roll in. But speaking of real life, Michaela, I want you to talk about your experience kind of going through this pandemic and maybe not so much of an emphasis on the health side because we all kind of been under the same conditions and trying to stay safe and wearing a mask everywhere and all of that stuff, social distance. But just like how has the pandemic affected your grind and your hustle? For the good or the bad? Like how has being sheltered in place now being in Atlanta, we kind of opened up early, so you might be able to speak to that as well because we definitely were open mad early. But how has the pandemic like really affected your grind for the good and the bad? And also attached to that, talk about living in Atlanta, which was particularly over this past summer, which was a hotbed for protests, particularly against police brutality, as we witnessed the death of Ahmaud Arbery first, right there in Brunswick, Georgia, and then, of course, George Floyd, and, of course, Breonna Taylor. With Atlanta being a hotbed for protesting, talk to me about how the pandemic affected both your grind and how you went through that season of heavy protesting in the city.
Well, in regard to my grind, I definitely think it motivated me more because, like I said, I'm very like introverted to myself, and so I've always been kind of just comfortable like with whatever I was good at. So with school, I was able to get up, go to school, do my work. I was in a routine. I was used to a routine. Right. So once we had to like be inside and my classes moved to Zoom, my classes are like 3 to 4 hours. So imagine sitting on Zoom for 3 hours straight, listening to talk. And then not only that, when the pandemic hit, that was when I was transitioning into my practicum course, which is when I started to see clients. Wow. And all of that was moving to virtual. So I'm nervous about that because I'm like, okay, this is my first time seeing clients and I have to do it through a computer screen. Wow. And so it was a lot to juggle. But over time, I did start to adapt and just kind of figure out what worked for me, what didn't work for me. But it definitely motivated me to go after what I want more, just because when we had to move to lockdown, it's kind of like you had to go out of your way to get things that you wanted or needed, or especially career-wise, professionally, like you really have to reach out and make connections to people in a virtual space.
Yeah.
It made it a little more difficult, but in order to get where you want to be, you got to do what you got to do. So it definitely pushed me to step out of my comfort zone a lot more and just be more outgoing, because if you would have asked me to do this last year, I probably wouldn't have done it. That just wasn't my thing. But now that I'm in this space of like being used to this virtual space, I'm way more open to reaching out to people and sharing my voice and being more vocal in a lot of different areas. And that even ties to, the protests and everything. So when that happened, I was actually in Macon because I went home when the pandemic first started, and I just stayed there for a few months. Mm-hmm. And so I came back up here around the time that the George Floyd killing happened, which actually happened on my birthday.
Wow.
So that was a lot. And even so when the looting and all that started happening, I live like probably 10 minutes from Lenox. So, they trash Lenox and and the Target down the street. So all of that was literally right down the street from me. So that was kind of scary because we're all like not really sure of, when is this going to end? How far is this going to go? So it was just a lot of reflecting going on. But I will say my program did a really good job of, creating a space for Black and brown people to share our experiences and how we were feeling about everything that was going on. So they did create a lot of dialogue, and we had opportunities to share with like my white cohort members who weren't really understanding why we were so angry and why we were so hurt by everything that was going on. And we were able to kind of bond over that and educate them on, everything that was going on and how they could be a help to us. So it definitely opened my eyes a lot more to just being Black in America, because I've always been a part of communities that were not primarily Black. I went to a private school in Macon that was, I had Black classmates, but the school was primarily white. So when all of that started happening and being in this program where there's a lot of self-reflection going on, my program is very heavy on cultural competence. So we spent a whole semester talking about racism and social justice and how we can be agents of change and how we can go out and create space for people to share their experiences and how we can show up for those people. And so I was going through all of that and trying to still be Black in America and learn more about myself and my community and how I could help my community and how I could educate others who weren't as aware. So, the pandemic, I would say I experienced more good than bad in the pandemic. It taught me a lot about myself and just the world and really pushed me to step out of my comfort zone, like I said.
So listen, I'm so glad to hear that. And in a real sense, Kay, like if you don't, and I started saying this towards like, once we really kind of got into the thick of the pandemic, particularly around the summer, but like you should be producing something during this pandemic. Like if you come out of this pandemic with nothing to show for, right? I mean, at least be able to say I read a certain amount of books, or I started journaling, or even if it's small, there should have been something productive to come out of this pandemic. And I'm really glad to hear that it did for you, particularly kind of, albeit, it's a tragic situation, particularly, and an unjust situation, particularly with the Floyd and the Taylor and Arbery, that kind of catapulted, especially George Floyd, that really catapulted the BLM movement even the more, right? On the heels of just a few years ago, Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin. And so it's just crazy. But nevertheless, for you to even kind of being able to tap into your own identity and like self-awareness as a Black African-American woman, for you to even kind of confront that and to wrestle with that ideology within yourself, I think it just speaks volumes. And I think like you're not the only one, like, you're not the only person in your early 20s that really is kind of confronting that reality. And I champion you for it. I salute you for it. And I'm glad to hear that this pandemic has been a productive time. I want to get back to something you said earlier on when you talked about how it really motivated you to really get a lot of other things done and moved you into more social spaces. I want to talk about when you started taking clients. I think that's a good thing, and I didn't prep you for this, but when you started taking clients, so how was that transition, understanding also that you started taking clients in the middle of a pandemic, and so everything was virtual, and it will be changing, eventually, and you'll be seeing them in person. How was that transition from like just in the classroom and mock drills to this is my job?
It was definitely scary because, like I said, I keep saying this because it's so true, but I'm very much in my own bubble a lot. Like, you can't really get a lot of words out of me. So that was another thing when I say I had to push myself, because it really forced me to like be sociable and like create conversation. So when I first started, I was very nervous just because I didn't know what I was going to get. I think my first client was a couple actually who they had been married for like 10 years, I think.
Wow.
So here I am like 22, about to be 23. I'm not married. Like I'm definitely not married for 10 years. So what can I tell these people that can be useful?
Right.
So it was definitely scary, but my program does a really good job at preparing you to see clients. Like they're not gonna let you see clients if they don't think you're ready. So the fact that they, let me do it was already like, okay, I guess I know what I'm doing. So I just had to go in there and really be myself. And I started it was like the end of July last year. So it's been almost a year that I've been seeing clients full time. So I can definitely see my own growth from the very first time up until now. I'm a lot more comfortable and like just open and just really engaged. I will say I'm a little nervous for when we transition out of this virtual space because I think I'm so comfortable with being virtual and kind of like through a screen that I don't know what that's going to be like sitting across from somebody in a room. And if something happens, like I have to be quick on my feet. Like you don't have the excuse of, oh, my Wi-Fi went out, or the Skippy. Like you're right there, so you have to figure it out on spot. But I mean, I definitely feel like I've grown a lot, and I really enjoyed the work I do. Just from being able to pour into people and help them take control of their life.
Yeah, you answered one of my questions in regards to how do you really want to serve people in this profession? And it bled through in that answer that you just gave, the way in which you just want to serve and help and really kind of, you talked about it even in the beginning when you were describing yourself, as a peacemaker or somebody that really tries to help people come to a resolve. I think that's awesome. We need more people in the world trying to usher in peace and resolve. Lord knows that's the truth. And I'm really glad to hear about you. You said something. You said, I was scared, but I did it. And my program prepared me. But it reminds me of something that Kimberly Abad said when I interviewed her about writing her book. She said that you have to sometimes do it scared. You have to do it scared. You have to jump out there into the deep, do it scared, and just watch how God really blows your mind in terms of the ways that he'll use you. And so I really, really I'm glad to hear that. And I'm glad to hear that you're making progress. And it's a step, every step, it's going to be a new experience when you're in person with people as well. And I'm going to be excited to hear about that experience. Listen, I want to wrap this up. I really want to ask some more, but I'm going to wrap this up with this last question because you have been really so informative. And any young person, any young adult that is out there making the transition to college, I'm going to have my daughter watch this. She'll be a senior. She's a rising senior. She'll be a rising senior next year. And so I'm going to have her watch this and other young adults who are looking at making the transition from high school to college or even from college to postgraduate work. You should definitely listen to these words because Michaela has really just unpacked some of the things that you should just know or really kind of prepare yourself for. But I want to hit you with this real quick, Michaela. Like, what motivates you? Let me ask, like, what really gets you motivated and to pursue and to hustle and to get after it? What are there any books, any scriptures, anything that you might want to share that motivates you? And also, if you can name maybe one or two of your mentors, because I think mentorship is very important. And I think it's a lost art for real. I think it's a lost art. We don't really emphasize the value of mentorship the way that we ought to and used to through programs like Big Brother, Big Sister, and all of that. We don't emphasize that the way we used to, and I think we need to get back to it because mentorship is so valuable. So if you can mention maybe one or two of your mentors and some things or maybe some materials that inspire you.
I think overall, just my family motivates me, obviously. I will say it does help to have an older sibling who you've seen accomplish things as far as like going to college, getting a master's degree, starting a business. Like it definitely gives you something to look forward to because for me, growing up, like school was just what you're supposed to do. You go to college, you go get a master's. Like that was like it felt very normal to me that
like this is what you're supposed to do.
I was like, okay, well, my sister did this, so let me go and do this. So it just
Shout out to Courtney Fogg, by the way. Shout out.
So that is definitely one of my huge motivators. Also, just wanting better for myself. Like you can't get better if you don't go out and go after it. So just seeing how I want my life to be in the future really keeps me motivated because. I love it. Especially when I'm sitting over here, like, I really don't want to do this paper, but if I don't do this paper, I mean, I can't graduate, which means I can't get a job, which means, so of course that cycle. My favorite scripture would have to be Philippians 3:14, because that just reminds me of, you're always pressing towards something. Like, even if you don't know what it is yet, that it's something else that you want. Like, you set goals for yourself, and you reach this one goal and you're like, okay, so what's next? Like I just feel like the possibilities are endless of what we can do in life. Like it's never like you just reach a point and you're just done. Like, you're always trying to go after something else. So that definitely keeps me going.
Right.
And as far as mentors, I will say Lakeisha Toomer is my second mom, my best friend's mom. She has definitely been a huge part of my life. It's even from high school, I was a part of, so at Bill Mount Zion Church, they have Elite. It's a part of their next level community development program. So I was a part of Job Club, which is how I got connected to work under Dr. Stephen Summerall when I thought I wanted to be an optometrist. So I was able to explore my options as far as like a career path, and just seeing her be an African-American female who is pouring into her community and helping the next generation is something I really look up to. And she also has the same degree that I'm trying to complete. So she also is able to give me advice on the program and how I can help people and be a vessel to people out here that need my help.
That's awesome. So awesome. I love that, man. My family motivates me. The one thing that really blessed me that you said is shout out to Courtney Fogg. We love you, girl. Listen, seeing my life in the future it motivates me. I love that. I know how I want to live. And so it motivates me to hustle and to grind and to knock it out and to get it done right now. I absolutely love that. I know I said that was the last question, but as you were talking, this rose to mind, and I just want you to go ahead and address this because you are a woman of faith. You come from a family of faith. And I would like to know, how does faith, play a role in your life and in the pursuit of this career that you're going after?
I would have to say faith is just, without faith, it's like, I mean, what can I do without faith? If I don't have faith, like how can I even challenge myself to go after certain things, especially like what you mentioned earlier about being fearful. Yeah. Fear is a normal thing that we have to experience, or else we won't try new things. We won't go out and do new things. And I really feel like if fear isn't present, then you really can't have faith, and you can't even imagine to do more if you aren't fearful of it. And I think if you are fearful of something, you should probably go after it, because even if you fail at it, failure is a lesson. It's gonna teach you of what not to do. It's gonna teach you, okay, so I know I might have failed at this one thing, but how can I try something different? It's gonna challenge you to always stay on your toes and keep trying and not be complacent with where you are, because, if you fail, you're gonna try again and try to see how you can get a different outcome. So faith is a huge part of my life. Just even applying to this program was off of faith. I didn't know if I was gonna get in. Wow. This is the only program I applied to. I had no idea what I was gonna do. And just every day, faith is present, because I'm talking to these people every day. Sometimes I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm just hoping that, something I say will translate over to them and they get something from it and they feel like their life is changing for the better. So I definitely feel like, faith is just something you have to have in order to get where you want to be in life, honestly.